stream on Facebook and then just share it out a couple places to try to get a couple more people on.
Yeah, I sent some thoughts to, or I sent some link to people and said, "Hey, pay attention. Kelsey will be saying things of value."
Yeah. So I just finished the basement. So like this is like the first time I've been able to like really hang out down here. Like at the beginning of the week, they kind of like put the finishing touches on it. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna try putting a thing on down there. And definitely the first time we've podcasted from down here.
The lighting looks great.
I'm just in my dining room next to the closet door that doesn't close.
I technically kind of am too, but we live in a loft, so it's just like one big room.
I've done a little bit of everything. I've like done it from the like the living room. I've done it from the dining room. I've done it outside, like on my back porch, just kind of like wherever. Especially when it's nice out, it's so nice to do it outside.
Oh yeah.
Talking about podcasting, by the way.
Yeah, I've done some podcasts outside. Certainly Zoom staff meetings outside.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always a nice way to do it.
Yeah. It's a little cold tonight and snow on the ground.
Do you guys have snow up there?
Yeah, we got a couple inches last night.
Oh, here comes Mr. Steve. I just got a ring notification, so he's walking in the building.
Oh, he's literally coming into the building. I thought he was going to come on another computer.
Yeah, no, he's going to be here with me. We, with COVID, we were definitely trying to do things.
There he is.
Tried to do things a little bit like remote, like he was home and whatever. But as soon as we we got vaccinated and things like that, we were like, we should be sharing these beers, because like we would try really hard to make sure we each had a can of whatever we had, and then yeah, and then we would just be pounding 16 ounces by ourselves.
So you don't have to finish,
guys. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't actually start the podcast. I just figured we would go live and try to entertain the masses. I don't even know what that is.
I think we're being very entertaining. I mean, as far as I can tell,
top quality content right here.
I got to say though that I think I'm really surprised to hear that you're an F1 fan, because I feel like there's maybe a dozen of us in the United States.
Yeah, I think it's been catching on. I think now that there's been more kind of media about it, and definitely like the video games help, and I think it's reaching more people. But yeah, like in the US, people like really only liked racing that turned left.
Right.
And it's like, oh, I like racing that turns left and right.
One of the many things that doesn't make sense about the US.
Which one am I?
You're two. Yep.
I grew up with quarter mile cars, the alcohol funny cars. So like, which it couldn't be less exciting. I mean, it's literally just go, stop, and that's it.
And possibly blow
There's
up.
And actually, the car my dad sponsored did blow up. So, ironically,
grew up
called the Boston Strangler.
Yeah, I grew up outside of Chicago, and there was a quarter-mile dirt track within about a mile from my house, and like we could hear the cars from our back porch. So we would get like season tickets for free, just so we wouldn't complain to the city. Right. So we saw tons of like quarter-mile dirt track stock car, World of Outlaw funny cars, sprint cars, Team Demolition, TT motorcycle racing, flat track motorcycle racing, like if
flat
anything,
cool.
Yeah, flat track was awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've watched some.
But basically, just like ride a motorcycle like on like sideways, like around a track.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Like I anytime I've seen anybody do a motorcycle on the track, I just don't understand how like gravity. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, what am I watching? How are they still
like their rear wheel is sideways? And
if I get on like a 0 horsepower mini bike, like I'm spinning and falling and losing balance.
And these guys have a knee on the ground.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Doing 190.
Yeah.
Start with the Kolsch. All right, guys, you ready to do a podcast? What are we? 17 minutes? That's not bad. It's not. We've done worse. You've done
It's all
worse,
my
for
fault.
sure.
I apologize, guys.
No, I didn't actually turn the stream on until like probably 8:05.
I'm a very on-time guy. That's what angers me.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to get through. All right,
You're forgiven. You're forgiven. Well, in an hour we'll decide if you're forgiven.
We can have it. We can have a vote. We can put up a Facebook poll.
All right, ready to do the thing?
Do it.
Let's do it. Oh, I got to record too, don't I? You're recording this.
The following is a Just Green production brought to you by the Might Be News Network.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Might Be Brews, episode 67, the podcast where we explore the people, places, and brews of the craft beer world. My name is John. With me, as always, Mr. Steve. How you doing tonight?
Did you tell our guests ahead of time that we have a film crew following us?
No.
There's going to be a 9-hour documentary in about 40 years coming out of this. It's going to be fabulous.
That's the thing to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're
It's like
on
you're
it.
the Beatles.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I see Peter Jackson back there somewhere.
So, I usually have a bunch of stuff to say. Like, I'm like ready to do sponsors and stuff. And
Well, it's been a while. We haven't recorded in a while.
yeah, Thompson Island was before, like a week before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it does a little bit out of practice, but you know, whatever. It is what it is. We've got some very special guests today. We've got Kelsey, the GM from Exhibit A Brewing in Framing. How do you guys say it? Because everybody in Massachusetts. Framingham.
Framingham.
Okay.
Just like it's spelled.
All right. Well, that's a first for Massachusetts.
Right.
Picture frame.
done.
Yeah. No.
And Matthew, the head brewer and co-founder as well from Exhibit A Brewing. Thank you guys so much for being here. We appreciate you guys. Where's my my clap? There we go.
There it
That's what
is.
I was looking for. We are out of practice. Let's crack a beer. I need to get a beer in me.
I already cracked it. That's why I'm a little bit ahead of you.
Yeah, good stuff. So, go ahead.
We got first beer up. We got Exhibit A's Goody Two Shoes. They're Kolsch.
Kolsch style.
You know, I like a Kolsch.
Pour it in the proper glass if you like.
What do you call that glass? What's it called?
Stanga.
Skanga.
Stanga.
that's-
S-T-A, like stranger, but without the T-R. S-T-A-N-G-E.
Stanga.
Stanga.
That's delicious.
Literally means stick in German. So
Nice.
That's a beer I'm having more than one of.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us about this Goody Two Shoes.
Go for it, Kelsey. You're our in-house Cicerone.
yeah. Well,
Cicerone.
well, we can certainly. Yeah, I am a certified. As my brother likes to call it, a chicharrone. A certified chicharrone. But yeah, this is this beer is the heart and soul of our brewery. This is what when we like to think of like who we are. From a beer standpoint, this is it. This is we actually can toot our horn a little bit here. With this, just got chosen as one of the top 50 beers for 2021 by Wine Enthusiast magazine. Came in at number 12. So we're pretty psyched about that. But yeah, it's crisp, clean. This is it's still an ale, but drinks a lot like a lager, but has a little bit more of that complexity to it with a little bit of floral notes, on the nose, and a little whiff of minerality from that authentic Kolsch yeast. We use pretty much a lot of traditional ingredients, Weyermann Pilsner malt. What are we still using? Hallertau?
Yeah, we have Tettnanger.
Tettnang.
Yeah, Tettnang's the hop in this one. Yeah.
And then and a little bit of Warthog wheat, which is a locally grown wheat that's malted in Hadley, Massachusetts. So we add a little bit of local character to it, and 5-week fermentation time. It just comes out delicious.
This is going down way too easy. I'm about to take more, but I think we should have some more.
I will do that.
And I'm like 800 degrees right now, and this is very cold, so I'm really liking it.
Yeah, that's going down nice.
Yeah, nice and easy. I do want it to warm up a little bit and see if I can get a little bit more character out of it. But still, I mean, it's a fantastic Kolsch. I mean, this kind of style is just so nice to drink, especially when you're as hot as I am right now.
They're the kind of style that makes you want to have another sip. And
yeah,
there's so many beers out there where I'm going to get all deep real early in the podcast. I'm only half a beer in. There's so many beers out there that are now just designed to pack you, punch you, and just push you into submission with so many different flavors and things coming over the top. Like, I want a clean beer and I just want it to be good sometimes. And this is what I've been craving these last, I don't know, 6 months, 8 months.
Yeah,
Just
I mean, Kelsey,
where I'm at.
Kelsey mentioned that it is the heart and soul of our brewery. I think part of that is, using the scales as a logo. It is about balance. And I think it was really important for us when we first started brewing this beer to be an authentic tribute to the style, to the place, to the culture. But also, this is an American brewed Kolsch style beer. We've got our own stamp in that, of course, but I like to think of it as the second best Kolsch in the world. Reisdorf, it's pretty great. So,
Didn't we have a higher ranking than Reisdorf on
Beer
Advocate for a while?
I do believe we have a higher ranking on both Beer Advocate and Untapped.
That's awesome.
I think we should do a blind Kolsch tasting.
Yeah,
yeah,
that'd be a lot of fun.
It'd be a lot of fun because it'd be tough
to do what. I mean, I don't know if I'd be able to pick anything out, but it might be fun just to
get
put them
6 of them and rank them.
Yeah.
Which one do you like the most?
Yeah, that'd be a lot.
Even with German ones, I mean, there's quite a difference. Like Früh Kolsch, it's a little darker. When you compare it to other ones that, it's got, it's a little bit. Gaffel has a little bit more sweetness to it, and
not quite as dry. Yeah.
And Zuner, Zuner is actually one of my favorites. That one just is super clean and crisp, and they would only release it here once a year, so.
It's hard to get. Yeah, it was hard to find. Yeah.
So when you guys were talking about the logo a little bit, you've got your scales there. Obviously, it leans a little bit towards the justice, I guess, kind of motif, and the Exhibit A. Is that something you guys were going for?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to think of us being, making balanced beers with people that are a little out of balance. I mean, we've gone through a lot of thoughts about that story, Kelsey. I mean, Kelsey designed the logo, so he might be able to answer that a little better than me. But
yeah, I think at the beginning of the podcast, I was going to ask, all right, who's the lawyer?
Yeah.
No, none of us.
That is our number one asked question, and in the tap room, it's like, where'd the logo name from? We're like, were you a bunch of lawyers?
Right.
No, it kind of came. I mean, the name itself kind of came from the idea that, when. Especially now in retail, you look at all your beers on the shelf. It's almost like an art exhibit, and that product that's out there, you're always on display. So it's kind of so it's an exhibit of what you're doing and who you are, and it kind of comes around from that idea, and then the scales come from balance in life, balance in beer, balancing malt and hops, or sweetness and bitterness, and where I take it from, because I do a lot of the marketing for the company, and I came from the retail side before working in production, on the production side. So for me, it was always about the story. Like, what's the story that you can tell with the beer? If I got a story behind a beer, whether it's like a trip that I made to the brewery or somebody I met from there, I could sell that beer in a liquor store all day long. But so having a good story behind the beer, is going to make that beer taste better if you have a relationship with it. I always remembered this woman would come into the store where I was working, and she came in one time and she goes, "So I just had a beer. It was in a blue can. I don't remember the name of it, but I was on a boat with my friends off the Cape. And the sun was setting, we were drinking this beer, and it was really the best beer I've ever had." And I'm like, yeah, so you're on a boat, watching the sunset off the coast of the Cape, and and that's what made the beer great. And I don't even remember what the name of the beer was that once we found it, but I remember it wasn't that great. It's like, oh, it was a fine beer, but it was the story, it was the experience that really made it. So for me, it was always the having that starting point, is going to make the difference. So if the great experience starts with Exhibit A, that's the beginning of the story. The beginning exhibit. So
You should totally change that story to it being a Bud Light.
yeah, it should be Bud Light.
Really hammer home the point that it was the experience. It wasn't the Bud Light. It was the experience.
I want to say it was Cisco's Whale's Tail Pale Ale, but I don't remember. That's the blue can I remember, but it could have been
I think
something.
I've had that.
Yeah, it's good beer.
Is that a thong reference? Whale tail? I don't know.
I don't know.
Cisco Brewers. No, it's
they're on the island, so yeah. They're on Nantucket.
So I'm super excited we got connected. I'm definitely familiar with you guys, and I actually had to look it up. I went through my Instagram, and I had my first Cat's Meow on December 11th, 2018. So
Nice.
I think I had made a trip to the Massachusetts area and had found it. Probably, I don't know if it was like on a shelf somewhere, something like that. I know, like for a while there, I was just like I was like going to Massachusetts, and I would find like a Whole Foods or something nearby, and I'd go grab like some beer to take back to the hotel when I was there for work. But so I actually posted on there that it was like one of my favorite Massachusetts beers that I had, and my wife had agreed with me. So I was like, when I'm flipping through and looking at it, I was like, man, I was like really, really excited about this beer. But I also, because you guys are new guests, we always do this with new guests. I want to ask you guys about your first gateway craft beer. So like if you have that memory of that beer that maybe changed your mind about what beer was, that maybe got you into brewing, or kind of maybe just got you into the whole industry itself, maybe.
Yeah, I'll go first. I think I kind of love this question and hate this question because I can answer it in so many different ways. And Kelsey knows this, that I can have like 15 different answers for the same question and still be giving you an honest experience of that answer. I started home brewing in 1995. And in those days, there was some good craft beer. There wasn't a ton. But before that, I learned about craft beer by going to Dead shows. And in 1991, when I was seeing those early shows in my live Grateful Dead career, I guess, it was Molson Golden of all beers that like got us excited. I think it was a combination of like, it's Canada, that seemed fancy, and it was premium. It wasn't Heineken, which I wasn't into Heineken, but my brothers, Jason and Dan, were into Molson's, so I drank Molson's. But after that summer, I went to UMass and I found this store called the Spirit House, which is still there, and it's a great shop. And they had all the beers, and like you could mix and match 6-packs of Catamount and Long Trail and Sam Adams and Harpoon and various other beers that were from the local beers. And at the time, it was like $4.99 a 6-pack, which $20 case of beer was kind of a premium. Like it was, wow, we're spending on this. Like we could get Lion's Head for $7.99 a case of bar bottles, and every other one was weird and every other one was terrible. But so it was those beers. It was Catamount Amber, Stovepipe Porter, Long Trail Ale, I guess is what they called it back then. And they got us into better beers and never looked back. And then I moved to the west. I moved west to Arizona, and I was able to get, Anchor Liberty Ale, Sierra Pale Ale, of course, which is, that you could say Sierra Pale Ale and just be done with it. But those are, those West Coast beers like Anchor, Sierra, and handful of others were what we could get in Arizona, which at the time in Flagstaff, it was like a dead zone of good beer. And I get there and I see a homebrew shop a block from my house. And I'm like, oh, I don't even need to buy Anchor Liberty kegs for $79 a half barrel or 50 liter. I can just go and make my own beer. And so I went right from drinking these, what I consider to be the best beer, like I said, Catamount Amber and I think Stovepipe Porter were the two that struck me in those days. And I just wanted to make those type of beers. So you know, that it hooked me right away. You know, I was excited about it. And we would like think of beers as like a little bit of a trophy. Like, oh, this, I got the Long Trail double bag. You're like, oh, you know, it was $6.99 a 6-pack. Super expensive.
Wild.
So,
How times have changed, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. How about you, Kelsey?
Yeah, I think it was, I would have to say it was either Harpoon IPA, just because, you know, I was living with a bunch of guys in an apartment in, you know, just north of Boston. And so we would kind of go to the liquor store and be like, hey, you know, what's over here? What's over there? And so we drank a lot of Harpoon IPA and Pete's Wicked Ale, I think was one of them too. You know, and that one was like, it's dark, you know, it's like it's not a you know, it's not a light lager, you know, it's dark colored, and we're like, wow, flavor. But yeah, I remember Harpoon IPA too being like, oh man, it's like so bitter, it's like so hoppy, and now that you have one, you're like, yeah, are there hops in here, you know?
Right.
But
that's funny because Pete's Wicked Ale was the first legal keg of beer I ever purchased on my 21st. Yeah, so
we definitely had some Pete's Wicked nights.
Yeah.
Like a 95, 96 range.
Yep.
Pete's Wicked was a special one, and or J&W Dundee Honey Brown, that was another it's something different.
Yeah. It took me a long time before I started buying kegs. I mean, because, you know, I kind of came up in a little bit of a different era, but, you know, everybody was bottling and canning and things, and but it took me a while before I actually bought a keg.
I don't know if I've ever purchased a keg myself.
Yeah, well, you know, it was actually before I really got into craft beer, though, because like when I first discovered I liked beer at all, you know, I was drinking summer shandies and Blue Moons, and then I remember getting a kegerator and getting a Blue Moon, getting a shock top.
There you go.
You know, and getting that stuff, and then you know,
I definitely remember getting a party ball.
Oh yeah,
party ball.
Killian's party balls.
I remember we looked that up recently. I was like, what is that?
It's like a ball of
we blended them with homebrew that we couldn't get to carbonate. So we had like this like kind of like Killian's / homebrew thing.
That's a great idea.
Hey, like in lieu of like the can shortage, we should all just like start packaging in party balls.
Oh my god.
So speaking of home brewing, if you got, you know, tell us about the history leading up to opening a brewery. You know, when you're home brewing, when do you realize that you can make that jump, and what other jobs did you guys hold, you know, that got you to the point of being able to open up your own place?
I mean, that's a 23-year story for me, but so I started homebrewing, like I said, in 95, and I moved and I was living in Amherst in 93. And a friend of mine was homebrewing, this kid, Eric Shuddy, who had made beer with his dad. So he blew up some carboys in his living room in Amherst. And I was cleaning a corny keg in his shower with my roommate Ward. And like, we we're just like figuring it out, you know, and, like we didn't have a great setup in those days. But and then I was homebrewing 10 gallons a week when I was in Flagstaff for about a year and a half. Straight, just like every week I was brewing more beer, and like, you know, I had a lot of friends because I needed to get rid of it, and then I decided I wanted to be in the beer business. I just decided, like, I think I can do this. My father at the time was building and expanding his business, which is auto service, and he was like, you're nuts, you have a great opportunity here. You just graduating college with a small business management degree. Why don't you come and help me run this business? And I just kind of stuck to my guns and said, I want to try to get a job in the beer business. And I did successfully do that. My first job was working at like a brew on premise in Denver, where I would bring you would come in with your buddies and make some beer. They bounced a couple paychecks, so I had to get out of there and moved back to Massachusetts and worked at Harpoon.
I don't mean to interrupt you there, but
yeah.
Like, so John and I would go to your place and like say, I want to brew a batch of IPA.
Yeah.
And you'd hook it up.
Yeah, we had like a book of recipes, you know, and you could make a batch of beer, and 2 weeks later you'd come back and put it into 22-ounce bottles, and you'd get 6 cases roughly out of a batch of beer. And
That's not a bad idea.
That's such an interesting business model.
It exists still. There's a few brew on premise that left in the world, not many, but there's definitely. I mean, there's 2 here in Massachusetts, I think, that still operate. I mean, it's a concept. It's not one that I think really, breeds massive success, but I think there is some success in it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, how much work you putting in to sell like, a little bit of beer. It's kind of almost like
a lot. It's a lot.
when
But it's
you're
a premium to do it. It's like a night out with you and your friends.
I was almost
stuff.
like paint the wine and painting place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Paint
similar.
kind of things.
I don't know why the way I went was, like if you're thinking about being a pilot, you can do like that introductory lesson where like, you go up with a pilot and they kind of show you how to operate a plane to see if you want to start taking lessons. Like it's almost like hey, I've been thinking about homebrewing, but I don't even know where to start. That kind of thing. It could kind of be that angle too, I think. But
or people that want to homebrew but just don't have the setup to do it at the house, or just don't have a good kitchen for it, or their partner, husband or wife, doesn't want them doing it in the house for whatever reasons. We had a lot of reasons why people would show up, but I left there, started working at Harpoon, left Harpoon, worked at a brew pub in Cambridge called John Harvard's, which I was there for 3 years as the assistant brewer, and I just kept at it. I wanted to continue to become a head brewer and eventually open my own place. So that was 1999, which then I guess 17 years later, I finally opened up my own place. But other jobs in between, I was a head brewer for a brew pub on Martha's Vineyard called Offshore Ale. I started my own brand called Blatant Beer. That was a contracted beer. After Offshore, I worked, and I was the head brewer and first hire at Mayflower Brewing Company in Plymouth, and was there for 3.5 years. And they're still kicking butt, and it's their porter is one that I get asked about a lot still. Like, oh, I love that porter. I've worked with a lot of great people. I spent a lot of time learning and forgetting, and then trying to relearn. And
it's a heck of a resume, man. That you've been around the country and a lot of different breweries, and I'm sure there was a lot of things learned.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I've had a blast doing it. I can't even consider, people are like, what's next? And I'm like, this is it. I really don't want to go anywhere else. And, couldn't be more satisfied and proud of what we've built. Kelsey being our first hire, and, of the 5 people that are still originals, 4.
Actually 3 originals.
Yeah.
So you, me, and Adam.
Yeah, and Kevin, but he came like a little longer after.
So before we get into the brewery opening, you want to give me a little bit of a background, Kelsey, what you did leading up to this, and then we'll kind of talk about how you guys came together to get the brewery up and running.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have never brewed a drop of beer, and and Matthew probably wants to keep it that way. No, I went to college for film. I was for filmmaking. Out of college, I worked in the film industry for a little while. Then I became a video producer and editor, and did that for a long time. And that's kind of where I built up my photography skills, my graphic design skills. I built a lot of websites and did print materials and a lot of marketing stuff. And I got kind of burnt out on that industry, and wanted to do something that I had a little bit more passion for, and instead of doing like corporate video and stuff.
Sure.
So the craft beer scene in Massachusetts was kind of just kicking off at that time, and I got to know some of the early brewers that were opening up, and I'm like, this is a really cool industry. This is something I would like to be involved in. So there was 2 women who are still in the business. They opened a store in Belmont called Craft Beer Cellar, and with this kind of crazy idea that they're just going to focus on craft beer as a liquor store concept, and which was novel at the time. Like nobody would do this, and they were about to open our second store, and they were looking for people to kind of help open it. So I put my name in. I said, hey, this sounds like something I can do. That's something that I think I can help you out with. And so I helped open that store. Then they moved me onto the brand team, and I helped them open 26 more stores across the country. And that's kind of where I got to know a lot more people in the industry, where I got to know Matthew as well. So when Matthew was kind of had this secret project that he was working on, he's looking to find some people to help him out with it. I'm like, I'm interested. Let's talk. And he made the mistake of hiring me, and now I'm here.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always wished that I had gone. I don't know, maybe that's not the right way to say it, but I really wanted to do film and things like that. Like I was doing it in school, and I loved it. And but I had like no drive at all. You know what I mean? When I look back on it, I'm like, I was so good at it, and it was so easy for me. And I wish I would have like actually put some attention into like training or learning more and more schooling, because I don't know, I had so much fun with it. I always wish that I had done that, or like tried to expand on it a little bit more. But yeah, I don't know. Now we're all here in the beer industry, right?
Yeah,
well, it's interesting that you should say that, and I love that Kelsey comes from that, because years ago, my sister's a filmmaker, and my stepsister Sarah and her father Bob are both filmmakers, and we were sitting in Bob's studio, and I love this story, but years ago, and he said, like, think about beer making and filmmaking as they're very similar in a lot of ways, and he's kind of this, he's very feeling kind of guy, and he said, you take all this raw material, this footage, this grain and hops that have no real reason to be together, and this footage doesn't really seem to fit together, but then you take it and you form it into this one cohesive thing. And that's how filmmaking and beer making are actually so similar, is that this raw material to create something that's one, that's combined, is a thing. And so we always talk about how filmmaking, like he said, filmmaking and beer making, it's the same. It's actually the same.
Yeah, that's a good perspective. I like that.
Yeah, and you're making something that, where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Absolutely.
Like if you just shoved some malt, water, yeast, and hops in your mouth, it's not going to be beer.
No.
Yeah, you gotta have some forethought to make sure you're getting good raw material, or that you've got a good recipe. But then when you're actually editing it, putting it all together, putting a soundtrack to it, right? Double dry hopping.
Dry hopping.
There we go.
And you're still telling stories.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, that's kind of like our goal with this, right? We always think that, like you guys were saying earlier, there's a story to be told, and when you have the story behind it, you have the experience. It makes the brand and the beer so much more enjoyable. When you can hear about what people put into it, and blood, sweat, and tears, years and years of grinding and doing all these things to finally open up their shop, and then they finally have a place, and they've got this fantastic beer that's winning awards and all these things. And for people to get to know that story, I think it becomes more than just a can on the shelf. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we find that. Yeah, our guests that come into the tap room love that. I mean, they've become our friends and our regulars, and the people that we can count on to like be there when we release a new beer. They care deeply about that story. They're part of that story, And I think that people ask, like, "What's your favorite beer?" Like, it's what am I doing? Who's there with me? That's how I answer that question. Like, is it winter and I'm sitting by a fire pit? Well, it may not be Kolsch that day, Sure. It may not be Goody Two Shoes. It may be Sunday Caper or whatever. And so or Porter. And I do feel that there's something about that. It's that, Kelsey talks a lot about that, the experience, and how the liquid is so important, but without the experience being the thing that brings us together, then the beer is just kind of just a liquid thing that we kind of enjoy,
Yeah. Well, we just cracked open the Cat's Meow, and I want to talk about this a little bit because.
Oh, and there's my cat Sophie right over there.
Is that Sophie's tail on the can?
No, that is not Sophie's tail. But
I'm on the wrong side of I must be on the back side of the can.
Yeah. Two sides of every story.
Yep.
There's the face. Nice.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to, I'm trying to remember the first time I saw this. If trying to remember, was I attracted to the can? Was there not a lot of other New England IPAs on the shelf, or what was going on? But man, I love this beer. And it just the aroma, like the nose right off the bat, it was so tropical and so much juice just before even tasting it. I was like so excited to sip this beer, and I love it. And like, I think I can easily say that, your guys' area, right? At least for us, from our perspective, being in southeastern Pennsylvania, that the Boston area, southeastern Massachusetts, is a great beer market, especially for that. You guys, at least I feel like you guys are really known for your New England IPAs. Like that's kind of where it came out of, like Vermont and Maine and
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire, Massachusetts, that whole area. But
The whole New England area.
yeah, the New England area, exactly. But I think about some of those. I think about some of those breweries there, and this I feel like just is as good, if not better. It's such a fantastic beer.
It's a really good representation of the style. Like it gives you, like, if you say New England IPA, this is the kind of beer you want to think of. But it doesn't smack you over the top with anything. It's got the cloudiness, it's got the juiciness, it's got a little bit of everything to tickle your fancy if you're looking for the New England IPA.
Yeah, I like the hops, and I like that there's a bitterness and hop that lingers. So I get all those great flavors, and of course, like you guys keep saying, and I feel like I wear the word out. It's balanced. It's incredibly balanced. It's got that hoppiness. It's got that juiciness, that malt, everything. It's a full body, right? And there's nothing missing from it at all. But I really enjoy that. I'm just getting like a nice, subtly bitter hop that just lingers for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that's deliberate. I think that a lot of people put the New England IPA in this. It's got to be soft. It's got to be low bitterness. It's got to have the juice character. It's got to be hazy. For us, like I miss bitterness in IPAs. I want a little bit of bitterness. I feel like without it, like we have a pretty substantial malt backbone in our beers. We care deeply for the malt, and we could talk about malt all night as far as I'm concerned. And I will if you don't stop me. But there's a lot of malt in this beer, and we really focus on the malt. I'm wearing the Valley Malt shirt right here. Nice. And so without that bitterness, the beer will be too sweet. It will be probably sticky, and because it's not super dry. But I think the balance that we deliver with a gentle bitterness into the kettle, a fairly aggressive Whirlpool addition, and then an absurdly aggressive dry hopping is what it makes it balanced enough that we still get some of that bitterness. I think both from the IBUs that we're getting from those additions in the hot side, but we're also getting a little bit of mouthfeel bitterness from the dry hopping.
Yeah.
It's in there. I mean, there's, it's funny because I'm fresh off of listening to the Thompson Island podcast that you guys did, just because I wanted to hear your voices and see what you guys were like. And I really liked what he had to say about, like, he had like a beer that was like 1.9 bitter, IBUs or whatever. But he also makes his flagship sounds like it's a classic kind of West Coast style IPA. And I think one of the things that I wanted out of this beer was to be somewhere, not necessarily in the middle, but it is a New England IPA. I wanted that, it's got El Dorado and Citra and Mosaic in the, in throughout the process. And without that Bravo addition, which is the bitterness that we get, Bravo hops in the kettle, which we get from Roy Farms. Big shout out to those guys. They grow some amazing hops. That's really where that thing that you're talking about, that linger, that's where that's coming from. And that's like a pound and a half for 15 minutes in the kettle. It's not even a big, it's not a huge addition. Whereas we're putting, it's 176 pounds in the dry hops or whatever.
Wow.
Yeah. It might even be more than that. I don't even know. But
I might be wrong, but like when I think about New England IPAs, does it go back as far as Heady Topper? Because that's like almost that palate crusher that we always talk about.
To me,
the
I
palate
don't think
wrecker.
of Heady Topper as a New England IPA though.
No,
It's an IPA from New England.
because it's like super aggressively hopped, and it is a little hazy, but like
It doesn't have the softness that these kind of beers I think have.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Is I wonder if there's been an evolution in the New England IPA where, a lot of people in the area maybe were trying to, emulate things like Heady Topper or start to know that style was starting to get appreciated and, incredibly aggressively hopped, but then people started making it less and, more and more soft, less IBUs, even though there are a shit ton of hops.
And also more hazy. Like, I mean, and we can talk about there's, two obvious breweries that we can talk about that kind of have cornered that hazy market.
Mhm.
With Trillium and Treehouse, and they're friends of ours. We all of us kind of know a bunch of people from all those breweries. One of the things that I think happened was that all of a sudden Heady became this like synonymous as the New England IPA, and you buy Heady now, and it is not very hazy. It's crispy and bright on the palate, and it's pretty bitter. It is very well balanced. I actually haven't had a Heady probably in over a year, but my palate recollection of that particular beer is that it is not within this juicy hazy IPA style, and I think that John Kimmick would be the first to tell you that that's not what he's going for, with that beer. I mean, they were making that beer 10 years ago, 12 or 13 years ago, way before any of this was going on.
Sure.
And obviously it being an 8% kind of crusher, and I don't know. I think that, breweries like Trillium and Treehouse have done a really good job of presenting the style as a, kind of, this is what we do, among other things, but this is kind of what we focus on. And then a lot of other breweries like us, like we're a portfolio brewery. We have more non-IPAs than we have IPAs, certainly. And so, I mean, our menu right now is pretty hop heavy, I think.
Yeah.
but
I think too that what the New England style IPA has done, especially in our market, but I can't speak necessarily for other markets, but it really has been that gateway beer for a lot of people. Like they, we would have people come into the tap room, and be like, "Oh, I don't like IPAs." And my first question is, when was the last time you had one? If it was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it could be very different from what you may remember. And I think a lot of people are just picking up on that juiciness, the soft mouthfeel, the light bitterness, and really enjoying that. Whereas, the West Coast style IPA, you really need, like as creatures, we're biologically programmed to not like bitter. Bitter is generally poison. So we if something's bitter, we generally are trained to not like that. But so I think there's a natural kind of reaction to super hoppy, super bitter beers. But the New England style IPA kind of turned it around and said, "Oh, here's this thing that's kind of like orange juice. You like orange juice, right?" And yes, and it really, I think, resonated with people. And there's now there's a whole fleet of craft beer drinkers who really just only drink New England style IPAs. We see it all the time out here. It's like, oh, all I drink is Treehouse. It's like, okay, well, why don't you try one of ours?
There's other beers to be.
Yeah, there's other beers.
Yeah,
for sure. So
I think it also gets a little boring too if you're drinking the same style all the time, or worse, the same brewery all the time.
I want to get to Doug quick while he's watching. Are you distributing in PA? You guys, I don't think you guys have it.
No, we don't distribute, but we are licensed to ship direct to consumer in Pennsylvania. So we'll
ship you fresh 4-packs right from the brewery straight to your door.
You can go right on our website to the merch store, and there's a beer category, and you can order beer right from there.
My order came incredibly fast. I couldn't believe how quick it showed up.
How'd you like that box too?
I love the box. I took a picture of the box and sent it to my beer friends. Like, look at this box.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's like what? Yeah, in the beer nerd chat, I was like, guys, look at this box. This is it was impressive.
Yeah, that's Romano Container out of Westwood, or Norwood. Where are they? Yeah, Westwood.
Yeah, Westwood.
Yeah, they actually, his son owns a brewery here in Massachusetts called Castle Island, Dick Romano, and he decided he wanted to be in the beer business, and he sells cardboard to basically everybody in the area.
That's awesome.
And Cat's Meow, I know for a fact that Cat's Meow is his favorite beer. So
that's nice. I've got a typo.
He just doesn't tell Adam that.
I've got a typo, but at the bottom, order beer from our guest, exhibitabrewing.com, exhibit-a-brewing.com.
Yes,
you guys can click order in the top right corner, and
we'll
get
ship it out to you tomorrow.
Did you put World Wide Web dot?
No, I put out instead of our. Did it instead of an R? It's out on the internet forever.
You can't.
I'll be judged from here on out.
So if our listeners want to order, you do. What do you have to do? 4 packs, 3 4-packs? Does it matter?
The box holds 3 4-packs. I recommend at least 2 just for balance. And you're going to pay for shipping, so it's usually going to be about $20 for shipping. So I say fill up that box, make the most of it. And
Pennsylvania is 3 4-packs is what's supposed to be the law for when you're getting beer shipped to you, but it just depends on the brewery you order from, because sometimes you can order and you just get a giant box.
Yeah, they're all over the place.
Yeah.
I
think
we're happy to send a 12-pack.
Yeah, so once you place your order, we email you back. You just need to send us a photo of your ID, to show that you're 21, and then we pack it up, send it FedEx home delivery, and it gets to you usually within 2 to 3 days, depending on FedEx. But,
yeah, and this time of year it's great because it's not hot outside, so the beer is going to show up nice and cool.
Yeah,
showing up nice and crispy.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
So we kind of jumped ahead, but tell us about, can you think of any interesting stories of what it was like, deciding I'm opening a place and what went into it? You said it was 5 years ago. So what was it like opening a brewery 5 years ago? And, what's it like now? What's the market like now? And what was it like then, I guess, when you were getting started? What are the differences?
I mean, the market has been pretty mature here in Massachusetts for a while. I already had 17 years of experience at the time when we were opening. And for those that don't know, we actually didn't build our brewery from scratch. We ended up moving into an existing brewery and renovating it. Jack's Abbey was there before us, and we assumed their lease and eventually bought the building from the landlord a couple of years ago.
Are they still around?
Oh yeah. They're half a mile down the street from us. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was thinking of when you guys said Framingham. I was like, isn't there a beer Framingham?
Framingham, yeah,
yeah,
one of their beers, yeah. So at the time, I was pretty confident that a combination of my experience of knowing I could deliver on making really good beers, hiring the right people, certainly getting Kelsey on board on the marketing and at the time taproom management, sales management, kind of everything. I like to brag that Kelsey does every single thing in the brewery except make beer. Like that's what he does.
I do HR and I
totally
do it all.
Yeah. This is my son Noah. He's showing just his pajama shirt.
Yeah.
Noah.
Yeah, this is live. So all of those things combined, I had some confidence for sure. And I also had a bit of a reputation. I had been brewing in Massachusetts for decade and a half plus, and was ready to deliver on all of that. And
sure.
I had an idea of what kind of beers I wanted to make. I wanted to lead with a Kolsch. I wanted to make a porter. I wanted to make some IPAs. I didn't even think about making New England IPA. And in fact, it took us 2.5 years before we even put New England IPA on the label.
So we're like, that's not a style.
Right. We didn't believe that it was a style. We were like, we are doing. That's exactly right. And so at the time, we were in Framingham, and there was a big lager brewery there, and we didn't feel the need to make lagers, although we do make some lager now, and are proud of some of those beers. but we wanted to have a portfolio that we could look back on. I see you're drinking just a kitten right now.
Yeah, after having some juice, I was like, I just need a little bit more. I want to try something.
So that's Toby, the other cat. That's Toby. That's
Okay.
Toby the cat.
Yeah, that is Toby.
And our 20-year-old art student Isabella did do that drawing of Toby with the ball of yarn, and Kelsey collaborated, I guess, with her to finish off the design and create that label, which to me, it's actually my favorite label.
I like the background a lot.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. Little Easter eggs there. But I mean, at the time, the market was hungry for more IPAs within this hazy, juicy style, but it was early. Like we hadn't, Treehouse was a couple years old at that time. Trillium was kind of just getting big, and I
think they just opened their Canton location.
They just had opened Canton, so there was a lot of excitement behind the brand. We, like Kelsey said, we were kind of kept it a secret for a little while, and we did. I didn't even tell people the name of the place. I didn't tell them anything about what we were doing until maybe a month or so before we opened. It's kind of hard to remember now the details, but it was a pretty exciting time. I mean, there's like I said, the market's mature here in Massachusetts.
Sure.
The craft beer drinker is normal. It's like, it's not some shock if you drink, better beers. And it felt very natural to progress in this way where it was like, we're not just going to lean on one kind of thing. We're going to actually have this wide portfolio, make 16 different beers a year. And like now we've made 60 different beers or something. I don't even know how many different beers we've made, but iterations of different things and project beers. And
I think we have 14 on draft in the tap room right now. So.
Do we have 14 right now?
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. At one point, I remember thinking when we first had 8, we had 8 beers, and we were like, wow, we have 8 beers in cans. Like, this is incredible. And in on draft and in cans. And now we have 14. And there's probably even more than that in cans and bottles right now.
My favorite time was probably like a month or 2 months after we opened. Like we had gotten slammed with like people coming into the tap room, and we were out of everything except for Hair Razor, which is the double IPA, and I think we had Sunday Paper, which is Sunday Paper was the 9.9% Imperial Stout, and we had Swordfish, which was a 10% barrel aged barley wine. So like people came in and they're like, oh, what do you have? It's like, are you looking to get sloshed? Because that's about all we got.
Yeah, we had 4 beers, everything over 8%.
Yeah.
Nice.
It felt good though. I mean, we were busy right away. We definitely got some nice accolades right away, and we had some excitement behind the brand and behind the people for sure. Kelsey had a lot of friends that he brought. I had a lot of friends. Turns out our taproom manager Adam also had a lot of friends. And apparently our dads were friends, and we didn't even know that our dads were friends.
That's cool.
Yeah. And
nice.
So it was a very exciting opening. Yeah,
Kelsey,
we were all pretty pumped up.
What's your taproom vibe up like up there? If we got anybody visiting, are you guys doing food, or is it like a Quizzo every night kind of place? Is it just a small little drinking hole? What's the vibe up there?
Yeah, I mean, our tap room, it ebbs and flows. So the actual tap room space itself is relatively small. We have like a 4-seat bar, and then probably about another 20, 25 seats. I've got a couple pinball machines in the back, and so it's pretty chill on weeknights. Friday night, we open up the brewery floor itself, and we set up high top tables in there, and we get food vendors, usually food trucks or pop-ups that will come in like Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. And so you actually can go sit inside the brewery. Then we got live bands that play in there. Saturdays, we do like stand-up comedy shows. We do movie nights. And then Sundays are kind of a little bit more chill. We have a live jazz program every Sunday from like 1 to 3, where we got local jazz artists to come in and play. And so it's a nice chill kind of Sunday. Sunday brunchy,
Nice.
chill out,
Yeah.
nurse your hangover kind of place.
I don't know anybody doing jazz around here.
Not anymore.
Oh, that sounds
Yeah,
cool.
it's really
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, I
That's
think
why we
too-
wanted to do it, because there's very few places to actually go see live jazz anymore.
Yeah.
And even like the live bands that we book, Matthew and I discussed it early on, and we're like, there are so many places for a cover band to play. You know, like any bar, restaurant, you know, stick a guy with a guitar and have him play Wagon Wheel, you know, and that's totally fine. You know, but where are the venues for bands that are doing original music you know, where are they going to play? And especially with
Nowhere in the
pandemic, so
suburbs.
many of them closed. Even in the city, you know, these venues that were closing left and right. And we're like, well, let's do that. So so we booked primarily just bands that play original music, and I'm booking into May of 2022 right now for shows.
And we have discovered some incredible bands. Like we've had bands play that like we're all like, these guys are incredible. Like how are they not? You know, I'm like on the phone with my brother because his wife works for a record company. I'm like, you've got to get down here and see this band. You know, and we've had some amazing bands play. It's been part's been amazing, and we're all into music, and I think that it's really a very gratifying to be able to support the local original bands, you know.
Yeah, and we book everything from as long as it's kind of taproom friendly. Death metal, live death metal probably doesn't work as well, but you know, we book reggae, and we got a lot of alt rock bands, especially downtown Boston area. There's a bunch of kind of cool up and coming bands that are forming out there. One of our favorite bands called the Macrotones, and they're a 9-piece Afro funk band.
Amazing.
And the first time they played, we're like, how are we going to fit them all in? But they work. They got full horn section, everything.
Oh, that sounds like a blast.
Yeah.
So reggae bands.
Yeah, reggae bands.
And a couple reggae bands. We've also had a guy playing out of a mic'd cactus, of all things.
What?
Yeah, we did some friends of ours one is a music teacher, and he started a program called Original Gravity Series, and they would kind of go around to different breweries and curate these kind of alternative kind of symphonic type of music, kind of experimental music shows. So the guy that they booked for at our brewery, he did a variety of other things, but one of the things he did was he brought in a cactus, like a small little round cactus, and put some like electrodes in it, basically, and then that was connected to his Mac, and he would pluck and twirl the spines on the cactus,
right,
and that would translate into notes. So he would actually be playing, and like strumming this cactus.
And his fingers were covered in like little holes, like he had little stars. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you even begin to think of that?
Yeah.
It's like he put a humbucker in a prickly pear.
But the most amazing thing about that is he had sheet music for it.
Right.
And I'm like, I want to see, like, how do you write sheet music for a cactus? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about a pineapple? It might not hurt as much.
Yeah,
no, I'm going cactus.
Yeah.
Right.
It's awesome.
It almost sounded like liquid. There was like some liquidity, like it had liquid sound to it. It was really interesting.
Yeah, it was like a plunk, plunk. Yeah,
that wasn't. I wouldn't say that was the highlight of our live original music.
Yeah, it was definitely
definitely funny. Yeah, it was so memorable.
I mean,
we were all kind of like, we have to see this. Like, I got to see this guy
for sure. Somebody had to come up with the didgeridoo, right? Or like playing a saw.
But
like,
that doesn't hurt to touch.
The saw does.
Yeah.
Definitely took some experimentation and some creativity.
Yeah.
I'll say that for sure. So we're sipping on this Just a Kitten, and like I said, I just wanted to do another juicy, and it's fantastic, and it again has that nice bitter hop that I feel like is lingering, but it's definitely a different hop.
Yeah,
I can't pick out what it is for sure, but like it's really nice and interesting that it's like just that different flavor that's coming out that's lingering.
So Cat and Kitten share a very similar malt character, very very similar malt base. Cat being 6.5%, Kitten's 5%. We hop the beer very different though. In fact, there's no kettle hops in Just a Kitten. We use just Citra in the Whirlpool, and it is a very aggressive pitch of Citra in there. I mean, that charge is basically, it's a half pound per barrel on the hot side, which is pretty aggressive. I mean, you know, it just is. It's a fair amount. I don't know that we've measured the IBUs on this one recently, but I'd guess it's 30 or 40 just from that addition. You know, like not calculated necessarily, but certainly, you know, if you measure it with the equipment, with the spectrometer or whatever tool might be used. But so we then dry hop the beer with a combination of Mosaic and Vic's Secret. Vic's Secret is an Australian grown aromatic, beautiful, unbelievable hop. I love that hop so much. And we contracted with Willamette Valley Hops to get kind of the primo lots of that. And we've really found a home with it in this beer. We've used it in other beers as well. We have a double IPA called Wandering Thoughts that we use it in, and we've used it in various beers. But this is the one that's really leading it, you know, using a majority of those hops, and it's awesome. I mean, I'm super proud of it. It's basically 2-to-1 Vic's Secret to Mosaic in the dry hop.
Okay.
And we make 60 barrel batches of this one. We make 80 barrel batches of Cat and 60 barrel batches of Kitten. And it's awesome.
It's our number 2 seller now.
It is, yeah. And we only launched it a year and a half ago, right? 2 years.
Yep.
And so it kind of took over, and we're brewing it every other week. And that part's been really fun. I like the idea of having a lower percentage well hopped beer.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, 5% beer for me is kind of where that's my sweet spot as far as like if I'm going to enjoy a few. I happen to be one of those brewers that like barely drinks anymore. Like I literally, since the pandemic started, I've had like a beer a week. You know, like it's pretty awesome actually, but sort of sad. You know, like today I had a full sample size, a 5-ounce pour of our Focal Point, which is our smoked dunkel lager.
Smoked dunkel.
Yeah, dunkel lager. Yeah,
Munich dunkel. Yeah,
Munich dunkel. Slightly smoky, not super smoky.
Smoked beers are making a comeback.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about smoked beers recently in the brewery. I mean, so but with Just a Kitten, it's for us, I really envision that beer maintaining its number 2 spot and in our portfolio, and helping to take us to the next level.
Do you guys see it like an evolution happening with your customers? You know, you talk about how big and how popular the hazy IPAs are in your your guys' market, let's say, and to be a type of brewery that has lots of different options other than just hazy IPAs, do you see customers now that they've come into the mix and they've got an appreciation for beer now, maybe because they've had all of these, super soft, juicy IPAs that have kind of introduced them to craft beer, now they can explore more, and are there more people that are really starting to appreciate, pilsners, lagers, porters, all these other styles?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I think it's, there's kind of I call it like the bell curve of the craft beer drinker sort of, it's like when you first kind of get into it, you're like, oh my God, there's flavor, so you want those like double IPAs, you want the pastry stouts, you want all this stuff, that all the crazy flavors. And then you're like, okay, well, what else is out there? And, generally like the new craft beer drinker isn't going to gravitate towards the goody two shoes, because that kind of reminds them of what they were drinking in college, so they're looking for something different. But then they come back to it and they realize how well crafted it is, and and like you can't make mistakes in a beer like that. So I think they start to come around to sour beers and to lagers and pilsners and kolsches and kind of more of your classic styles, British milds and things like that. And I would say like wholesale, I think the hazy IPA is still king. But in our tap room and in the beer garden in the summer, we see a lot more Kolsch, a lot more of the lagers. We do a Mexican lager called Right to Farm. That does really well. And, so I think when you're in that environment, just kind of hanging out, what you want to enjoy a beer, kind of experience the atmosphere. I think, people are turning towards the lighter beers, the lagers, the kind of crisper, more well balanced beers.
Yeah, I think also not just the younger, I don't mean younger in age, but like the people that have a little less craft beer experience, may lean towards what they're told is good. So, the hazy IPA that's not as bitter because they maybe tried IPAs 5 years ago and were like, well, I can't handle this. But I think the more mature drinker, and certainly industry people, and I don't just mean brewers, but like servers, restaurant people, they're coming in and they order Kolsch, or porter. Like they're not they don't have time for the IPAs. They've had them all in that way, and I think that when people come to our brewery that are brewers or that work at breweries or that are in the industry otherwise in some fashion, they want to find out what's going on with this goody two shoes. They've either heard of it or they've been told you got to drink this Kolsch. They're making the best Kolsch in the area. That to me it doesn't get more gratifying. Like I love when brewers show up because they're drinking that. I know they are, and they don't even need to order it. You just hand it to them, and you're like, hey.
It reminds me of when we launched Southern Maine. We were at the Maine Brewers Guild Festival, and like all of the other brewers were running over to our table going, I heard I got to try the Kolsch.
That was one of my favorite moments because one of my heroes, and he probably wouldn't like to hear this, but Garrett Marrero from Maui Brewing, who we saw at CDC this year, he was very proud to drink the beers with us, and he's just such a amazing warm dude, and he's just like, this is good, man. You're making really good Kolsch here. Like, what the hell are you up to? How are you, you're like the sleeper, like nobody knows about this. Like, how come? And we were young at that point. We were only like a year and a half in, and we had been invited up to that main festival. So that was I love when brewers who I really look up to get a chance to try it and actually get it. And they're just
that's exciting.
Super exciting. Yeah.
How rewarding, for sure.
Oh, the best. It's the best.
Yeah, and when we have when we host the Mass Brewers Guild meetings, it's like 99% Kolsch that people are drinking, and then like the other 1% is like people wanting to try the other things.
Yeah.
Do you guys have anything coming up at the brewery that you want to plug? Any events, any new beer releases, anything going on up there that people should be on the lookout for?
Airport Live tomorrow night, right?
Yeah, Airport's playing live. They were nominated for Best of Boston or Boston Music Award for Best Rock Band. So they're playing tomorrow night. But we got the Blackstone Valley String Quartet's doing a holiday concert next Saturday at the brewery, which is going to be fun. So we do all kinds of music. So it's going to be a nice classical holiday concert. We're just kind of winding down for the holidays, and then we're starting our comedy shows back up again on January 8th. So our live stand-up comedy in the brewery. So that should be a lot of fun. And what do we got coming out? We got. Did you want to talk about our latest project?
Sure.
I'm
happy to mention it. I am really excited to see that you're both drinking a porter right now. I care a lot about that beer. I'll talk about the new project, but I'll talk about the porter for a second because you're about to. Yep, you're drinking it right now. So it's we could talk about hops all day, and that would excite people. But malt is just as sexy, and if not more sexy. So we put a lot of effort into exploring roasted grains to develop this beer. The maltsters and roaster at Valley Malt, Andrea and Chris and Margot, have done an amazing job of helping us find the right roasts for this beer. We use a combination of coffee, like brown malt, like English style brown malt, and chocolate wheat, and a little bit of roast roasted barley, but the majority of the flavor and the color that you're getting in that beer is from the brown malt, and it's like 160 Levabond, English style brown malt, and it's a beautiful grain. Like whenever we go to brew porter, and it is my, if you're going to ask this question, I'll just answer it already. It is my favorite beer to make. It is also one of my favorite beers to drink, but it is definitely my favorite beer to make because the aromas that just come pouring out of that brew house are out of control. It's like, it's chocolate and coffee like aromas, but then you get this deep like bread, dark bread coming out of there, brown bread. And it's like walking. I do actually love not being the person brewing it, because if I walk in during the brew day, like say I come in at 9 o'clock or something, which is generally not the case, but I'm coming in at 9 o'clock for whatever reason, and either Kyle or Joe or someone else is actually on the deck that morning, and I can smell it for the first time after not being in the building. It's like, this is why I got into this silly business, and it is true though that the dark beers are fun to make because it just smells amazing in the brewery, and it's a privilege, and I'm so proud to be able to use the grains from Valley Malt to deliver a beer like this, for sure.
It's coffee and chocolate were you said that's the very first things that came to my palate.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit of tobacco-y in the back end, but not a lot. I don't like it when porters get too tobacco-y on me, and so this is really nice.
No, I like the carb. There's like a really nice the carb on it's really good.
There's a softness to the carb.
Yeah.
Yeah, we carbonate most of our beers. Like our hoppy beers are like around 2.6, 2.64. This might get a little more technical than people want to hear, but Kolsch is like 2.65 to 2.7, and then the porter is like 2.5 to 2.55, and that difference is pretty clear. Like there's a difference, and when you drink the beer certainly side by side, you can feel the softness of the porter. And I think if it was carbed much more, it would be too crispy, and it would take away, I think, from the delicate.
Get like metallic sometimes.
Yep.
Dark beers get too carbonated.
It's almost like gives it like a creaminess kind of feel to it.
Yeah. There's definitely no metallic. I know exactly what you mean. Everybody likes to give me crap because when it comes to dark beers, I usually just want to go motor oil. I want like really thick, the darkest it can be, high ABV probably, and preferably barrel aged, right?
Yeah.
But this porter has such a good mouthfeel and such a good body that it makes me forget about that.
Yeah.
There's
for us, it's a standard. Like the idea is like, Kelsey came up with the name briefcase. And what I think about when I think about that is like, everybody kind of needs a briefcase. Now, none of us technically need a briefcase, but my briefcase is sitting right here. It's got my computer in it, but well, it usually has it in there. And, but it is there's something about the necessity of a porter in your portfolio, because there's always someone. And in our brewery, his name is Cisco. Francisco. He owns a bike shop across the street from the brewery, and he literally, I don't know that I've ever seen him drink anything besides a briefcase. And he has consumed more briefcase than any human that I know of, including all of us that work at the brewery, because we actually, drink through the portfolio, not just stop at one thing. And that to me, there is always a reason to have a porter, and it's a year-round part of our core portfolio. It's a necessity in I think every brewery, personally. Like, and when I go to a brewery, I want to know what's their kind of lightest beer, whether it's a lager or Kolsch or some kind of golden beer, and whether it's a wit beer or whatever, and then I want to know what their porter tastes like. And I feel like that is the defining factor for me of a brewer's skill, a brewer's design skill as far as beers concepts are concerned, and just the quality of the place.
I can't believe that's 5.4%.
Yeah. No, that's what I mean. Like, it's got such a thicker mouthfeel that it feels like a bigger beer than like I would usually think of a porter. Cause like sometimes to me, porters aren't sometimes they're not well executed. So they just feel like thin, watery stouts.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think that's a big problem with the style. Yeah.
I think that's why a lot of times when I try them from different places, I'm like, man, it just, give me something thick that's just got like that body that I want, So I really like and appreciate having a porter that's, that's got that feeling to it that doesn't make me think thin for a second. And I really like the dynamic you're talking about with the guy across the street that drinks all the porters. Like, I want to turn that into a question that we ask brewers, because I think about people like Devin with East Branch, where like there's a guy who like he makes sure that he has every beer that comes out of this brewery. Like every time they come out with a new beer, he's there.
Yeah.
He tries it. He brings it home. He's very proud to say, I've had every beer that this place has put out. I would imagine like every brewery's got a person like that, or has something where it's like, this guy's had every beer. This guy's had more porter than anybody else.
I think we all have that. Yeah. I mean, who is it?
Day at 1:15 p.m. or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know what time he starts, but it's early. I know that we've had over the years, we've definitely had people that have had basically everything we've ever brewed. We have a handful of regulars, Alex and Alan and those guys, the guys from they live in the neighborhood that we're in, and they have had all our beers. I mean, I don't think they stick to one thing. I think they kind of meander. And just kind of love everything that we do, and some are better than others, I'm sure, on the in a subjective nature. But yeah, we
definitely try everything when it comes out. But then they'll go back to Cat or Kitten or Hair Razor or Goodie,
right?
I like
whatever it is they're into.
I like the thought of this guy having like 6 or 7 porters and then getting on his bicycle and just weaving and hitting on the brakes all willy nilly like Max Verstappen. Huh? Look at that!
Yeah, Max Verstappen.
Nice reference. He would probably like that. He's a former professional rider, right? He was in
the Tour de France.
Yeah, he was in the Tour de France. He has a very cool bike shop. I've bought a few bikes from him in the recent years. I just bought my son a bike from him. Nice. He couldn't be a bigger supporter. I mean, he shouts us out anytime he can. The Boston Marathon runs right kind of by our brewery, a block from our brewery, and we own the building that's actually on that street also, and he's right across the street, so his bike shop is right on the marathon route. So this year for the marathon, they were all out there, there were like 10 people, all of our regulars, and they're drinking at 9 a.m, cans of our beers.
It's got the grill going,
Yeah, it's
Nice.
great. It's great. And,
that's awesome.
When you said he was a professional, I wanted it to be a professional wrestler so bad.
No, he's a very tall, skinny Puerto Rican guy. He's not going to wrestle anybody.
That's impressive. That if he
built for riding.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
So
Great
guys,
friend of the brewery.
I want to ask you, what is the Northeast Grain Shed Alliance?
The heart and soul of our future. So the Northeast Grain Shed Alliance is a group of like-minded companies and individuals, both consumers, breweries, bakers, distillers, millers who make flour, and grain growers, farmers. And we all came together, and educators, thank you, and retailers. So it's basically everybody.
And the supply chain.
The whole purpose of it is to bring the supply chain to the forefront of the conversation. And one of the big issues that we have now as brewers is sourcing and procuring ingredients. People talk about cans, like, oh, it's hard to find cans. Well, I got tons of cans. What I need is grain, and I need a lot of grain. So I can buy grain from Canada. I can buy grain from the Midwest. I can buy grain from Europe, but I can also buy grain from the Northeast. So we've got growers in Maine and New Hampshire and Massachusetts and New York and Connecticut and all sorts of other areas. I'm sure there's grain growing down in Pennsylvania as well. And I know there's craft maltsters in Pennsylvania. So the idea is to just bring that conversation to the consumer, to the brewers, to the distillers, bakers, everybody that's using these processed materials, so that we're consistent in our message, which is that using local grain is good for the local economy. It's good for the farmers. It's great for the consumer because you know where your stuff is coming from. And I learned last night, actually, it's funny. I get it. I happen to be really great friends with our malt supplier at Valley Malt as well. I mean, they happen to be wonderful business associates, but they're also my close friends. And so I get a text from Andrea last night, and she says, you used 20 acres this year of barley.
Wow.
Like 20 acres. Now, an acre of barley is anywhere between 1,500 and 2,000 to 2,500 pounds. Okay. So we've used 20 acres of barley. We've used 28 acres of wheat and a measly acre and a half, or I'm sorry, half an acre of rye, because we make one rye beer a year called Danko, and we use Danko. And actually, what's hilarious is that Andrea is texting me right now, and I'm guessing that they're listening. They are. But so the cool part about that is that we can talk to those farmers, and we can go to those farms and be like, wow, that's 20 acres. Now, mind you, this can of, where is it? Goody Two Shoes, is, if this beer was made with 100% local grain, it would be roughly 4 square feet of field. Okay, so imagine that 1 pint of beer is 2 by 2 farmland. So a case of beer it's just the amount of field that is required to make these beers is out of control. So we take it upon ourselves to put a lot of effort and resources and, quite frankly, money into being able to buy local grain and having a local maltster process that grain. And then, of course, the local brewer using it, and hopefully that local consumer enjoying it and reflecting on the fact that, wow, it came from that farm. And so that supply chain is really important to me as a brewer, because it takes me 14 weeks to get, a pallet of grain from Europe. Like, I order full containers from Wireman now and from Simpsons in the UK. It takes 14 weeks minimum to get that to our door.
That was before the supply chain issue.
And that was before the pandemic. And now it's it's 6 months, right? So it's actually shrinking a little bit now, because it's improving a little, but it could get stuck at the dock in New York and never get here.
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah.
And think about that. Like, should I get grain from 4,000 miles away, or should I get it from 50?
Yeah, for sure.
Or 400 miles. So the Northeast Grain Shed is this 400-mile area. And we have many growers. We have many bakers and distillers and brewers and millers. And it's really an exciting time for grain in the Northeast. And I happen to be on the advisory board. I'm also on the, I don't know what the board, another board, which is the 4 square foot project, which is the idea of this pint of beer is 4 square feet of farmland. So let's try to keep most of that farmland here,
That's blowing my mind right now to think of 4 square feet per beer.
Yeah, your mind should be blown, because it's insane. And that's, I think, part of our issue too. I mean, as living in an area where there is a lot of farming here in I live in Western Mass, and it's exciting because I go to Valley Malt and I'm like, there's barley and rye growing right there. And that's just like their test fields, And so I'm into it. I used to think that yeast is what used to get me excited about beer making. And when I was a home brewer, I used to I'd use Ardennes and, these cool Belgian yeasts. And it's malt actually that gets me the most excited these days.
Wow.
It really does.
And I think it resonates with consumers when you take the time to really kind of explain it that way, for them to realize, it's like, oh, I just drank 8 square feet and supported 8 square feet of local farmland from a local farmer that's right here in New England, and how many times can you say that about any kind of product that you buy from the grocery store? Like that you, unless you know specifically, like that can of, Chef Boyardee, like how much of the grain in that pasta is local, and so I think it resonates with people once they kind of understand. It's like, oh, by drinking this beer, I'm actually helping. I'm actually helping to support this farmer. I'm actually helping to support the maltsters, to help the local truckers, to help support the mills and everyone else who's on that local supply chain.
Yeah, it's awesome. I spend a lot of time with Andrea and Chris talking about this stuff, and one of the things that's been most energizing for me is getting to know some of the farmers. And there's a gentleman by the name of Tor Oshner, and he owns a farm in New York. And we actually just, I don't think he's listening, so I won't spoil the surprise, but he's about to get a package of beer that we mailed over to him. But I think the really exciting part is that they are so appreciative of the use of their materials. Like they're spending, like farming is hard freaking work.
Sure,
it's so hard. And grain growing, there's like no upside. It's like, it's so hard. It's so hard. The harvesting is hard. Like you're growing something that's this big, and it's like you need so much land to make it work, and you need so much harvest equipment, storage, fuel for trucking it around. And so for us, it's an unbelievable opportunity to support these farmers that would otherwise be making, they'd be growing great. They're also a flour mill, so they put a lot of raw wheat into bakers, which is awesome. But why not make some beer out of that grain? And so we have a pledge. We have a pledge to buy over 100,000 pounds of locally sourced grains in 2022. We happen to be, I learned yesterday, we happen to be Valley Malt's #1 customer, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
And she told me I could tell people that. So, but it is exciting, and it's a very deliberate move. Like I'm not doing this for marketing purposes. I'm doing it because it's better, and the beer is better because of it. I feel better about it, and it's a great story. And we get to share that with our brewers. The brewers are excited every time we open a fresh bag of something we haven't used in a while. Or we're, just doing a little sensory on some wheat, or we have a new grain called Va Va Vom, which is basically a dextrin malt that Valley Malt makes for us. When we open those bags, we chew on that grain, and we're like, this is special stuff. It's really, really incredible stuff.
It's so crazy to think that, of course there's different grains out there that you use for different styles, but like, I don't know. I haven't even really gone down that road much at all. Like I've got such limited like home brewing experience.
Now I'm trying to think of how much farmland I've drank over the past year.
Right.
That's a real thing. And in fact,
I just drank 8 square feet tonight.
Right.
There's a calculator that we have on the Northeast Grain Shed website that you can use to discover how much farmland you consume.
Yeah. Oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
What a crazy thing.
I can tell the wife I'm supporting local farmers now.
You can.
For sure.
That is a real deal. Yeah, there's no question you can do that. And you can also, and I put a little pride in the fact that we buy some grain from Europe too, because, it's fabulous grain, and we're supporting those farmers, and of course, shipping it across the country, across the ocean isn't the greatest thing. But the alternative is we don't have access to those world-class malts either. So why shouldn't we have access? So I have a great relationship with our supplier of Simpsons and Weyermann malts, Germany and the UK. Like I love those grains, and we use them. And some of them we use a lot of. The Kolsch, it's got Pilsner malt from Germany. I mean, it's we're aiming for authenticity here.
Sure.
And so there's no question as to our, we don't just have an allegiance to the local, although that is our primary allegiance. But I do take a lot of pride in the fact that we're buying these grains from Europe that are unbelievably high quality, and there are farmers that we're supporting through this work. So yeah. I think that there's something to be said about that as well.
That's awesome, man. It's such a great story. It's so nice to hear what's going on behind the scenes, what goes into the beer, how local it can be, and how much more special it is, why it's so important to support local breweries than to, always go grab that macro stuff. It's, I think it's really important for people to go out if they like drinking beer, even if it's, lagers and light beers, go find a local brew pub, go try that beer and find something that's, being where the grain's coming from local people, where the brewers, you're supporting the community. It's all coming back into your neighborhood and into your area. Go to that brew pub and try that out. I think that's such an important thing to do.
Yeah. It's a great message.
All right, you guys, I think we're getting close to it on time. You ready to get into the toast?
Do a toast.
Let's do the toast.
How about a beer?
Mighty Brews presents the toast of the week.
Oh my God, dude.
I'm on the coffee stout now.
Oh, Sunday paper.
They're going
That's
down
your
pretty easy.
It's going down pretty easy.
That's your motor oil there.
Have you?
Yeah.
Are you going to talk? Get back.
We can if you'd like to.
I think one of you guys mentioned earlier. We were talking about the Beatles for a second. Somebody dropped it, but
Big fan.
Mr. Steve on what was it, Thompson Island, right?
It was Thompson Island.
You toasted found footage, and I was really excited. And then I saw that the episodes were like movies.
I had no idea they were 3 hours apiece.
They're like 3 hours apiece.
I've watched through it. I've watched through it twice.
Have you?
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you, for real. So I
amazing.
can't say that I've had a lot of Beatles experience. I'm recently 36. I'm maybe a little bit younger than most Beatles fans, let's say, but like, it wasn't a part of my childhood growing up. Nobody in my family listened to it, and I just never really had that opportunity to dig in. And just like the podcasts do, just like Drive to Survive, the documentaries do, when you have these opportunities to see what's going on behind the scenes, you just get such a better appreciation for it. And I think it's probably crazy for a lot of people to hear that, like, I heard a lot of those songs for the first time on that documentary as they're being developed.
That's cool.
You know what I mean?
There's something to be said about that.
It's pretty wild, right?
My mom tested us on the Beatles when we were kids. Like, there was no effing around. Like, you had to know if you couldn't name the 4 Beatles. I mean, we used to make fun of someone that used to work at the brewery because he didn't know who John Lennon was. Like, I have a problem with that. Like, literally, I don't know that I can work with you.
As you should.
I was telling my wife recently, I was like, I could have told you Paul, John, Ringo, but who's the other guy? I couldn't have named the 4 Beatles.
All things must pass. I mean, it's one of the greatest solo records ever.
So and that was up until recently. So like I said, like I heard a lot of those songs for the first time, and my wife was telling me that on Preston and Steve, it's like a local regular radio station, they were talking about it and how like frustrating it was for them to watch it and them to be singing the wrong words.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they were like, I know the words to the song, like,
those aren't the words.
And it was a completely different experience for me. I was like, oh, I like where this is going. And then it's like, oh yeah, like I that's such a better verse now. Or, I like that guitar part.
More fun.
Yeah. So it was really interesting for me. And it's just like, I don't know. You said, what'd you say on the Thompson Island episode? Somebody told you that you're either a Beatles fan or you're not a Beatles fan yet.
Yeah.
Right.
I heard that.
It's definitely hooked me in, which I don't know how most Beatle fans feel. I'm sure that there's an argument. I'm starting to realize that there's probably an argument for a lot of people on what's the best album, right? Like everybody's going to have something.
I don't believe there's an argument.
No?
I know the right answer.
But it's interesting for me to have
Yellow Submarine.
my biggest my biggest Beatles knowledge or schooling, if you want to say, was like on this last album.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of interesting, and I have like now a certain appreciation, but like I've gone back and been putting it on. We've just been playing it in the house for like the last week and a half, 2 weeks straight.
Yeah.
Just playing whatever we can, and like it's really nice that my kids are starting to be like really excited when they hear things like like Let It Be or Yellow Submarine or something like that. They're super excited to hear the music come on, and they're like, oh, I like this one, or Hey Jude, especially last half of Hey Jude they can sing without a problem. But it's just really neat that I don't know, what it's done. I guess like I'm excited that now I really do have that appreciation for the Beatles that like I just never had the opportunity to dig in and really see it
And
or get into it.
And all you really got was you got maybe an album and a half, because a
Yeah.
lot of the things that they touched on in the documentary, they didn't even put on that album.
Right.
So a lot of it went into Abbey Road.
Did that come out after?
So Abbey Road came
I was
out.
going to ask that because I saw they did like
It was like 4
they,
months
they
later.
were messing with
Yeah.
Maxwell's Silver Hammer.
Yeah.
They were doing like a couple other songs, and I'm like, are they writing them right now, or are they just jamming?
So they recorded Let It Be.
Okay,
They recorded Abbey Road. They released Abbey Road
first. Okay,
and then they released Let It Be.
okay.
Right.
I'm glad we talked about it because I was like, I feel like they're writing this song right now, but it's not on the album.
Yeah.
It's on Abbey Road. So like, are they working it out still? Did that come out or okay? So that makes a lot of sense.
I think they were always just goofing around trying to figure it out, you know.
Mhm.
And just to be clear, Revolver is the best record, just as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I've actually watched a couple documentaries now. I went back and watched I forget what the name of it was, but I watched another one where it was kind of on everything, and there was a lot of footage from Get Back on it. It was the one that was done by Ron Howard, I think.
Yeah, anthology.
Yeah, and it was
Anthology,
kind of like the touring years, right? And then I started watching the one with Paul McCartney and Rick Rubin.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah, that one's really cool because he's got like a mixer out and they're playing all these songs, and I forget which one it was. Was it Guitar Gently Weeps? I forget, but like they pull down like all the other instruments and you're just getting Paul's bass and like how rugged it is compared to like, you know, the melodies and everything that's so soft about the guitar and everything. Like it was such a really neat experience to see them break it down that way, and for Paul to even be like, man, I've never heard it like this. I never realized like how different this layer of the song was versus this layer. It was really interesting. I'd recommend that.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. So I guess we should get into the toast because
I was going to say, was that your toast? What
no,
were you
it
toasting?
wasn't. we were texting back and forth about it,
Right.
you know, over the last week or whatever, and I just wanted to make sure that we followed up on it. But what did you think of it?
It took me a good, probably that first episode, just to adjust to accents.
Did you do subtitles? I had to do subtitles.
I didn't,
Yeah, I had to do subtitles.
and it was a mistake.
Yeah.
I should have started subtitles.
Yeah.
I like the subtitles. It
They
helps.
put them up for some of the stuff, but other
Yeah.
stuff, to watch Let It Be, and the way I described it was fall out of Paul's hands.
Mhm.
It is, you can't describe that. To watch him figure out the chords to Don't Let Me, or to Get Back,
Yeah.
on bass,
Yeah.
which is just like, why are you playing the
Just
chords
humming
on the
stuff.
bass?
Mhm. Yeah.
To watch that to him,
Wild.
he didn't write that song, he discovered it.
Right.
That
It
was
fell
just,
out of him.
it fell out.
Well,
of
and you
him.
know what
Christ.
there's a great interview with Paul on Howard Stern, and he talks about how they couldn't come up with the words, so they just used the word scrambled eggs. So like scrambled eggs, scrambled eggs, scrambled eggs, scrambled eggs, and John came in and was like, oh, I think that works. I think that's what we should do. He's like, no, I have better words. He's like, no, this is fine. You know.
So there's so much more that I want to know to their story now, like what led up to them being in that position, why tensions were so high. You know what I mean?
They're all friggin' geniuses, and they battled that, I'm sure.
Right, yeah, that it's such a crazy thing. Like, and to think, and then for me, like not knowing a lot of the Beatles catalog, but then when I hear things that came out so long ago, you know, like in the 60s, and for them to remind me of more modern songs, I kind of realize how influential they were. You know what I mean? Where it's like, man, like they were probably doing things. There was like, you know, maybe I'm going to say limited styles of music, or, you know, it just hadn't evolved as many times as it has in our lifetime. So like to hear those things and be like, man, that kind of reminds me of something like in the 90s or 2000s, like knowing that they influenced so much over or such a a long period of time is just incredible to see them like doing that for the first time and knowing it eventually led to this or that or the other.
And the fact that the oldest one of them was 28 at the time.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's insane.
Is that
And
George?
they had already
George is the oldest.
I thought George was the youngest.
Sorry, George is the youngest.
Maybe
Yeah,
Paul?
I said that.
but
Paul's the oldest.
the way
Yeah.
it's just crazy to think that they had cranked out how many hundreds of songs probably, and they're like, we're gonna make this album, like let's just go back to some of the stuff like me and John were jamming
And then they
back
just
in high school.
play that stuff like it's just in the back of their heads. Like,
Yeah.
oh, why don't we play this? And we'll play it without opening our mouths for one song.
Yeah.
I
Insanity.
want to know when they hit the drugs though, because there were a couple of scenes
India.
like, they would cut,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
you'd come back, and there was definitely some bloodshot
I was-
eyes going on.
Yeah, I was watching that documentary, and they were talking about there was a reporter that got assigned to follow them, and he was following through like their first couple albums and touring, and how like after this album or whatever, it was the first time that he like walked into a room and they were like, they had bloodshot eyes and they were high on marijuana. You know what I mean? And like, that was just such a shock for him. And I think there was definitely a change, but I don't know, just insane. I'm so happy now that the Beatles have kind of finally made their entry into my life. But we've got to get to the toast. So I want to say, I came up with an idea: burnt toast. Burnt toast are the negative ideas.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
I
I
like
like
that.
calling that burnt toast.
You got some burnt toast?
I came up, yeah. So there's a couple things that I want to get off my chest. Let's say first is if you're not watching F1, if you're not an F1 fan, the last race of the season is on Sunday. If you're on the East Coast, it's going to air 8 a.m. So wake up in the morning, 8 a.m. ESPN2. It's the last race of the season. The top two drivers are tied for points right now. It's going to be an epic finish. And of course, I'm going to say it again. I've probably said it on a few of the last podcasts. Watch Drive to Survive on Netflix, and they're coming out with the new season for this season of F1, and like I can't imagine how anticipated this season is. Like I'm excited for it. I think that's going to be huge.
So basically, whoever finishes ahead of the other one is going to win
Correct.
the championship.
Yeah. And
I
there's
guess
the
there could be
chance
a
that
weird thing if somebody gets the fastest lap and they
If-
both finish like 9th, 10th
Yeah.
or something.
but if
But that's
they,
probably
yeah.
not going to happen.
But if they crash each other out, Max technically wins because
But
he's won more races. So it's like one of those things like
It'll go from
You're
points
tied
to
for
races.
first.
Yeah.
you've got the same amount of wins, but you've won more in your conference or something like that, you know?
But those guys came out and said, if you crash that guy on purpose, we can take points.
Yeah,
So they
so
might take
Yep.
championship
We'll see what
points.
happens. But
There's no
two-
Michael Schumacher tactics going on here.
Exactly. So
Hopefully it's just like
I
a
think
finish where they're both racing at the end together, you know.
Yeah.
That's
I
what
think
you
they
wanna
should
see.
I
just
hope
let
so.
the two of them race by themselves.
for sure. That'd be
Less
awesome.
exciting though.
Yeah. But
They
like,
need the money markers to go around.
if anybody
Yeah.
watched the last race, the way that Esteban Ocon and Valtteri Bottas were, they're fighting for third, and it was literally down to the last stretch of them kind of being neck to neck. It was really exciting. It'd be really cool to see something like that happen, but who knows for sure what'll happen. My two. So anyway, watch the F1 race if you can. My two toasts that I really have is one. There's a movie that I found out about that I've been in contact with the director and producer, and it's pretty exciting. There's a project called Bottle Conditioned. So look up Bottle Conditioned on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. It's a documentary that they're making that's all about bottle conditioned wild fermentation lambic beers. So I know it looks like they've got Cantillon,
Mhm.
they've got Dre and all of these really cool, breweries that are into that style and why that style is so is at least popular now and what the history is behind it. It looks really fascinating. It looks like they're going to be a guest upcoming, but look them up online. Bottle Conditioned Film Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff, because that project is coming soon. They're actually crowdfunding to raise funds for post-production, but the trailer they released looks really cool.
Yeah, it looks well done.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to see that. And also from Fueled by Hops, which is a fantastic beer community that's out of
the Berg.
The Pittsburgh area. Ryan, who runs that group, we've had on the podcast a couple of times. He had his first kid this week, and I don't think it was an easy process. I think there was an early induction and a long labor process. So I know that was probably pretty crazy for your first kid, but toast to Ryan as well. Congratulations on your firstborn, and very excited for you. And cheers to everybody in the Fueled by Hops family. Thanks for your support. Cheers.
Cheers.
So my toast this week, the reason I was late, I don't know if you told these guys or not. I was at a viewing for my good friend in high school. His father passed away. He was also my 8th grade history teacher. Just a great guy. A great guy. Quick story. My friend Tony and I, we were probably about 15. We weren't 16 yet because we couldn't drive.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking to these 2 girls from a town over in Downingtown. We were in Coatesville. And they did not have their license.
Yeah.
We somehow convinced them to acquire their parents' car. They had their driver's permits, but not their license.
Yeah.
And had them drive over to see us. So we're at his house, and we convinced them of this, and they come over, and they're pulling up to the house.
Yeah.
And we're standing out by the curb to greet them. And as these 2 young ladies pull up to the curb, they hit the curb and pop the front tire.
No.
We have no idea how to change the tire.
Yeah, right.
So Tony's dad had to come out and change the tire for these poor girls, who's the father of one of the girls was a surgeon that was on call. So the car had to be returned quickly.
Yeah.
Tony's dad came out, who had just gotten through some food poisoning.
Oh, geez.
Changed the tire for these 2 young ladies.
Yeah. What a trooper.
And he had this booming voice, and as they left, he said, "I do believe that you gentlemen got those 2 ladies in quite a bit of trouble." But he was one of the good ones. So toast to Mr. Seto Henry. Cheers to you. It was a nice night to get out and see. Definitely had like a little mini high school reunion there with a bunch of the different people that we had over. You guys have anything? You got any quick toast you want to give to anybody?
One of the regulars in our tap room, Robin Vashon, she went in for multiple spine fusion surgery today. And she's out now. It looks like everything went well. So I want to do a cheers for Robin.
Cheers, Robin.
Yeah, I'm glad she's doing well, and hopefully for speedy recovery.
Matthew, you got one? You got anything up your sleeve there?
Sure. I don't generally do a lot of cheers. I'm gonna cheers to my dad. He passed away this year, and he would be super proud of our Beatles discussion during this beer podcast. And I don't know that my siblings are still listening, but I hope that they're raising their glasses to him.
Yeah, it's always good. We always like to mix in a little bit of some kind of other discussion with our beer.
Absolutely. I mean, we didn't even start talking about the Grateful Dead, but that's just because of Kelsey. he doesn't want me to get into that.
I saw them once live.
I just got into the Beatles. I got to have some more time to get into the Dead.
I give them a couple months.
I mostly went because Sting warmed up for them. So
I saw that tour. I was also at that tour. Nice.
I feel like we need to put scientists on the job of figuring out how like a few pints turn into 6 gallons of urine.
It's definitely there needs to be a conversion like the the 4 feet of farmland.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
Got to be some kind of formula.
doesn't make any sense. You guys got any toast? Anything you want to do?
That's a
Thank you,
different
we
kind of
did.
shed.
Did it already?
They gave us little toasts.
Yeah.
Did they?
They did.
We did our
Awesome.
toast.
Appreciate you guys. You ready to wrap it up?
Wrap it up.
All right, here we go. If first off, Kelsey, Matthew, thank you so much for
Thanks,
hanging
guys.
out with
Thank
us.
you.
It was such a pleasure and an honor
Fun.
to finally get to talk to the people behind the beers that we've had. Please, guys, go online, go to Exhibit A brewing.com, order some beer, get it shipped right to your door. If you took the time to watch us online, to listen to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform, we really, really appreciate you. Make sure you're following us on all the social media platforms. Keep an eye out. We've got a lot of really exciting stuff. We've got Frunk Brewing out of Emmaus, PA coming up. We're going to be doing, hopefully, a bottle conditioned film. We'll be talking to those guys as well. So a lot of really cool stuff coming up. So make sure you're following us. But thanks again so much, everybody listening. You guys for joining us and giving us this fantastic content. It's been such a pleasure. And let's stay in touch. I'm hoping one of the next times I come up to the Massachusetts area, I'll hit you guys up and stop by. And I'd love to see the place and maybe crack a beer with you. It'd be amazing.
That sounds
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah.
But thank you guys again so much. And everybody listening, we'll talk to you next time.
Peace. Thank you. Good night. Time for me to go to sleep.
All right, we're done.
But
We're still live
You're
streaming.
still live.
Yeah.
We're still live. I always have to bring that up.
Some
We are
people might
live,
have-
and I am about to go to sleep.
Go for it.
Do your thing.
Thank you. Appreciate
Good night,
it.
guys.
Yep, have a good night.
Have a
Thank
good
you
one.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good night.
See you
All right,
tomorrow.
thanks.
Bye.
Good guys.
You disappeared on me there. I was like, oh, is John okay?
I could not hold it anymore.
I thought you
Like all of a
I didn't know what was
sudden,
happening.
all the beer hit me, and I was like struggling. I was like, I'm gonna hear the rest of your story, and then I was like, I was like actually trying to like grab a hold of it, like
Tighten the
do
knot.
I need to pitch it off? You know, it was a little rough. Man, what a crazy week. You know, I'm also trying to figure out. I'd like to do some kind of segment similar to late review, of just like something that, I don't know what to call it, but something like what did you watch recently?
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like some kind of Netflix thing or whatever, but like so we can kind of talk about, because there's so many things. Like I watched Jagged.
Oh, I
Did
watched
you
that.
watch
That was very
Jagged?
good.
I liked it
That
a
was
lot.
very good. That whole album I figured is right up Haley's wheelhouse.
Yeah,
Like she's getting into like the grunge and that kind of stuff. And I
Yeah.
played that for her. She really liked that a lot.
I believe it. You know, I forgot about those songs, and it's crazy just how different they hit you now at like the age that you are, and you appreciate music a little bit more, or like, you know, the actual skills of the musicians, and you know, it was good music. It wasn't just pop.
So I actually saw her live,
Yeah,
and we
with
can
Taylor
ask.
Hawkins.
Yes.
Nice.
Excuse me. So, and we can talk about this with Dave when we talk to him with Funk, because he's who I went to see her with.
Nice.
So that album had just broke.
Mhm.
She had just gotten big, but she had still signed on to play all these smaller shows.
Yeah.
So we saw her at Wilkes College in Scranton
Yeah.
in their gymnasium, which is like the size of Coatesville's gymnasium. There had to be like 4,000 people there max, like total.
But still, that's a shit ton of people.
So we get there and she's playing, and I'm like, this is great. But I don't know who the fuck that drummer is, but he is fucking incredible.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Like, you know, I was into drumming that back then, so I was just like focused on this
Yeah.
guy. And then, you know, for however, 15 years later, 10 years later, whatever it was, I'm
Insane.
like, that's the guy that was fucking
Yeah.
drumming for Alanis.
Right.
I saw a guy get beat by bouncers worse than I've ever seen anybody get beaten up in my entire life at that show.
That's insane.
There was, we were like, what happened? And somebody said, oh, he hit a girl or something. So I don't know if that was actually what happened,
Yeah.
but the bouncers beat the out of this guy.
Shit. That's wild.
Yeah, that's my Alanis Morissette story.
I'm trying to think what else I've watched, because I feel like I've watched a whole bunch of shit this week.
Did you
That-
watch the Facts of Life, Different
No,
Strokes
I
thing?
didn't.
I taped it, but I didn't see it yet.
Yeah, I haven't watched
I
it
just
yet.
thought it was a cool idea. Like, yeah, bring it back
Yeah.
for a night.
You see Michael Strahan's going to space?
No, why is he going to space?
He's going on the penis ship.
Did he pay
I don't know.
$1 billion?
I don't know if he paid or if it's like an ABC publicity stunt, you know, because he does Good Morning America.
I'm not a Michael Strahan guy.
No?
It could be a Giants thing.
Yeah, I get that.
And
I like him. I just like that, you know, he came from football and then just immediately was beloved by everybody.
The sack record he got is just flat out bogus.
What is it?
He had the most sacks in the season, but Brett Favre, like the last game of the season, like he was coming at him and he just like fell over. So he got the record for most sacks in the season.
Oh, he just like gave it to him?
Basically.
That's whack.
It's very whack. Because he took it from Reggie White.
Okay. Yeah.
So
well,
that
yeah,
angers me.
for an old school Eagles fan, for sure. I could see that being a bummer.
I'm not disparaging this coffee stout here, but that porter, that was the winner of the night for me.
Yeah, the porter was amazing. I like the hazies, but that Kolsch was fucking banger too.
Kolsch's that porter really got me tonight. That was,
yeah, it was good. It was good.
As the guy in a Christmas Vacations, Uncle Eddie.
Favorite Christmas movie?
I really like Elf.
I love Elf.
I really like Elf.
At the moment, my wife and I, so we're the type of people that when we go to bed, we put stuff on and we leave the TV on all night, right? I don't know if there's a lot of people that do that. It might be blasphemy. I don't know. So we leave.
There's more than I thought there was.
What do you mean?
I never thought that people did that, and then I found out that a lot of people do that.
So because it's the holiday season, we're switching back between Elf and Noel.
I never saw Noel.
I think you should watch it.
That's
Bill Hader,
Anna Kendrick,
and Anna Kendrick.
I never saw that one.
It's a Disney thing. It's corny but cute. Actually, they don't take it too far, you know. But it's just good. I think it's well done. It's definitely a corny, like a slightly corny holiday movie, but it's more well done than anything, and I get a kick out of it.
If Fish is still listening, he's an Anna Kendrick fan, so he might be on that one.
What did he say he was doing? He was animated?
So he was at the viewing service with me, and there were a couple other friends from high school there, so they went to animated after the viewing. To have a drink.
That makes sense. I was like,
I've got to plan we got to plan a little high school get together here for after the new year, because it's so funny. Like Fish, I talk to, we text, if not daily, every other day.
Yeah.
But we met up with my friend Allie, my friend Jess from high school, and I haven't seen Allie in 20 years.
Wow.
I've seen Jess a little bit now and then, but you just fall right back into like,
that's so crazy.
It's like, hey, we catch up, like, oh, what are you working at? What are you doing? How's the kid? And then you just fall right back into like the same kind of conversations, like,
yeah,
like you haven't seen these people in a long time, but it's just so, I don't know, maybe that's just my friends group. That's the way we kind of, and then, you know, I get up to the front to see my friend whose father passed, and it's the same kind of thing. It's been at least 2 years since I've seen him, but you just fall like an old comfortable pair of slippers. Like,
sure.
I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, no, that. I don't know, man. I feel like maybe I'm at this weird like age or whatever, but like nostalgia has been like the high that I'm chasing. You know what I mean? There's so many things where I'm like, oh my God, like this reminds me of, you know, the old days or whatever. And I just can't get enough of it.
So you should start listening to that podcast that's 60 songs that define the 90s.
Okay.
So I don't know if it might be a little,
maybe
you probably like a 60 songs that define the 2000s more.
Maybe, you know, that's what's weird is because I feel like, you know, I was on the back end of like a lot of the good 90s stuff. You know what I mean? And there was some really good music, you know, because like I remember listening to Alanis, you know what I mean? And things like that. But then I also remember a lot of Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears that like really wasn't my thing. And, you know, kind of like the Woodstock documentary got into, like it just, that's why I was so excited for things like Limp Bizkit and Papa Roach and all these things that were, you know, top 40 TRL material.
Corn.
Yeah, corn, exactly, you know.
So they've done episodes on all those things that you've just talked
Yeah.
about. The episode that just came out this week was about Rob Thomas
Yeah.
and Santana Smooth. Did you know in the history of Billboard, you know, the Billboard charts, top 100,
right?
The top songs of all time.
Yeah.
They got to include streaming and old radio plays and sales and everything. So the measurement might be a little bit weird. The number one song of all time, according to Billboard, is Blinding Lights by The Weeknd.
Okay.
Number 2 is The Twist, Chubby Checker.
Okay.
Number 3 is Smooth by Rob Thomas and Santana. I didn't ever put that high.
I'm actually not surprised, but
I'm not
like
surprised,
I
but I never would have thought of that.
No, never.
If I said name the top 5 songs of all time, you would not have gotten to Smooth.
No,
but that song was everywhere.
Yeah,
it was on VH1. It was on oldie station. It was on pop stations. It was on rock stations.
Yeah,
it was everywhere.
Rob Thomas.
Number 4 was Mac the Knife.
What?
Mac the Knife. It's like from the 60s or 70s.
Okay, I don't know that.
I don't remember what number 5 was.
It's not ringing the bells. Not ringing any bells. Man, what a look up that. I'm gonna find out where it's at, but you should look up that Rick Rubin,
I will,
Paul
absolutely.
McCartney thing, because it's such a it was such a just it's in black and white. It's just it's an experience.
Just the way you describe it, like that that YouTube channel, this guy Rick Beato, who does What Makes This Song Great. He'll do that. He'll sit down with a song and he'll be like, okay, just listen to the bass and guitar together on this part.
Yeah,
just listen to the vocal and the piano in this part, and I eat that stuff up. I always said I would pay a subscription to a service that let me do that at home. I would go find a song a night and be like, I'm listening to just the bass part and just the second guitar part.
I think we've got a $2 million ideas on this podcast.
We could.
My wife has no idea we're going to start a come to my house and homebrew business.
I understand that might not be a huge a $1 billion company.
No,
but that'd be a nice little side hustle.
Yeah.
We'll set up a little homebrew ship. You come over. We could take a little couple of their beers after they're, work out great. I think we set up a recording studio over here in the corner.
Yeah. Absolutely. What do you think? Time to wrap it up?
Let's wrap it up. Yo,
everybody out there, we appreciate you. Thanks for watching. We're gonna hang it up for the evening. We'll be back in the
new year.
In the new year, yeah. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year,
Happy Holidays, peeps.
Happy Holidays. We're gonna see you in January, early January,
2022.
We've got a couple things lined up already. So, yeah, we're looking forward to talking to you in 2022. But thanks for being a fan. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you watch us on Twitch, thank you. It's like the first time ever. So I should have brought that up early on.
Yeah, I forgot about it.
We're on Twitch for the first time, but it is what it is. Follow us on Twitch. We'd appreciate it. All right, guys. Have a good night. We'll talk to you soon.